Surah 114 of the Holy Quran is known as Surah An-Nas, and indeed is translated quite often in the English language as that of man or mankind. Indeed, this particular chapter of the Holy Quran highlights to us the need for us to seek refuge in what arguably is the most open enemy as well as the most dangerous enemy in our lives, notably Satan. Indeed, you find that many of the religions in the world today have within their traditions the potent force and effects of Satan in the life of the human being. Indeed, you find that Christianity and Judaism do not differ from Islam in their recognition of Satan being deceiving, trying to plot to remove people from the path of God, always on the lookout on who the believers are in order to tempt them towards sin and towards open desires. And indeed, you find therefore that when the human being recognizes Shaitan or Satan or Iblis or the many different terminologies and names that have been associated with Satan's presence, then you find that there is a need for us to recite this particular chapter. Surah Al-Falaq may have been discussing, as an example, those areas which are not necessarily in our control. I can't go to every house and stop them from performing magic, nor do I know who looks at me with an evil eye. Yet at the same time, when you look at Surah An-Nas, there is more of a recognition that, no, I know who the enemy is, and I've seen him tempt before me. And his clientele is a fantastic clientele of names, and therefore I always have to be on the lookout. Hence, from the very outset of the religion of Islam, even when a person wants to perform any ibadah, any act of worship, the first thing they are to say, even before Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, before in the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, is to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitan ar-Rajim, that I seek refuge from the accursed Satan. There's a recognition that Satan was involved in arguably the most important event in the history of mankind in relation to his act with Adam and Eve. I recognize that he's tempted many a man and a woman before me, and therefore I recognize that I have to be on the lookout, but that lookout of mine can never be successful without the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That recognition that even Satan himself recognizes that Allah is the secret weapon to prevent all his work. He himself still speaks to God in a manner of respect all the time, as in when you see him speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, many a time he begins by saying, by your glory or by your majesty. But one thing he does not have respect for are the sons of Adam. The sons of Adam who are against the works of God, yes, anytime. He feels that they are his soldiers. And indeed he has soldiers of whom? The whisperers of the jinn and the whisperers of the human being, as we will see at the end of this particular surah when the ayah says, min al-jinnati wan-nas. Yet you find therefore that many of the acts that we perform, can we blame them on Satan wholly or no? Because sometimes you find many Muslims in the world today saying, that's all Shaitan's fault that I'm not religion, that I'm a man who is not of religion, that I'm a lady who's not religious. Yet you find that unfortunately this is a concept which is been spreading and has not been corrected. A person should not blame everything on Satan. Satan simply whispers. Satan simply tempts. Satan simply invites. But at the end of the day, either you allow Satan into your life or you turn around and you're able to block Satan. Satan will keep coming back and going. And we're going to come to the meaning of the word khannas when we try and understand what it means when a person keeps going and coming and going and coming and retreating and returning and going and coming. That is a definite given. That there is no way that Satan's going to stop the work that he's doing. But can I therefore allow Satan to my life, or is there a way where I can block Satan from entering my life? Block Satan from entering, for example, my aspirations? Because we know we all want to achieve fame. We all want to achieve wealth. We as human beings are also forgetful, hence the name insan from the word nasyan, that sometimes the insan is someone yinsa, the insan is someone who forgets. And we forget therefore that he is present, that he's always going to try and whisper. And mind you, not just whisper, it's going to be a whispering where the repeated syllables indicate it's a vicious whispering. With all this on board, the Quran came forward with a chapter given as a gift to the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, a gift to be recited in Salat al-Layl alongside Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Falaq, a gift that was given which we meant to recite before we go to sleep and after we wake up. You want to start a new day. You know very well that when you're going to go to work, I do not care how religious you are. I do not care how much of the Quran you have memorized. You know that the Quran has told you, أَلَمْ أَحَدْ إِلَيْكُمْ يَا بَنِي آدَمَ لَا تَعْبُدُوا الشَّيْطَانَ إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. That I have made it clear to you, O son of Adam, that do not worship Shaitan. Someone says, I'll never worship Shaitan. Firstly, we have Satan worshippers in the world today. That there is no doubt. But secondly, you don't have to worship Shaitan by saying, Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Shaitan. You don't have to say something like that. Rather, your acts will highlight who your true Lord is. Your acts of sincerity and of respect will highlight which Lord you follow. Or your acts of insincerity and disrespect will highlight who your true Lord is. And that's why something very interesting you'll find within this ayah. You'll find that a number of times صيغة المبالغة occurs to try and highlight to you that, listen, we're going to make it clear to you that this person's whispering is phenomenal, and he will continue and has children who continue. So the hyperbole used within this particular chapter is out of this world, and it really is not hyperbole in the sense of exaggeration. You know, there are some people who exaggerate, but that involves lying. Hyperbole in the sense of listen to the repetition of the symbols and of the syllables, and then you're going to realize that this person will whisper to you and is your fiercest enemy. And hence you'll notice within the chapter, let's begin with the chapter, you'll notice how this chapter tries to elaborate on this. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. A'udhu billah min shar shaitan la'in rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. From the beginning I admit, my Lord says to me, قُلْ, I say قُلْ. I admit, Ya Allah, Satan, that's a difficult enemy, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, you want me to say قُلْ, I will. I'm in need of your guidance, Ya Allah. Anything you tell me to say, that's going to protect me. Because that aspect of قُلْ at the beginning of an ayah, even with قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, is different, one may argue, from the قُلْ of يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ. The قُلْ of يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ is Allah saying, Muhammad, you don't speak to them like that. Let me tell them that they're kafir. I want to speak direct to them. Whereas the قُلْ of أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ is more of a case in point in that, you know what, admit to me that you are in need of me, that I am the Samad. And that's what we're doing. We admit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, we are in need of you, because Shaitan is the open enemy. Yes, قُلْ أَعُوذُ, I seek refuge from this open enemy. Yes, بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, Ya Allah, I seek refuge in you. Yes, because I recognize there's this enemy. So Ya Allah, I seek refuge in you, for you are my Rabb. And the word Rabb, if you were to read the books of tafsir, the word Rabb has so many different meanings that it is phenomenal. You find that sometimes we don't appreciate the word Rabb, but your Lord tells the Holy Prophet in the first ayahs of the Holy Quran, اقرأ بسم ربك الذي خلق. From the very beginning, Allah uses the term Rabb, correct or no? As in from the first ayah of the Quran revealed to the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, he says to him, read in the name of your Lord. Yes? From the outset, this idea of rububiyyah was seen as an idea we had to reflect on, as an attribute of Allah. We need to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately is our protector in all our affairs. Yes? You see, my mom may have protected me for a certain part of my life, and I recognize that my father did as well, and maybe the community did, and maybe even there's the king of a country who did as well. Yes? But ultimately, the combination of all of them, you will find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate protector, the ultimate nourisher, the ultimate guide, the Lord who I am in need of in this very difficult situation. When I say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, Ya Allah, I seek refuge and I need your help, for you are the Lord of mankind. Yes? I say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, but then I don't straight away say what I am seeking refuge from. Yes? I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Rabb al-Alameen. Yes, in Surah Al-Falaq, I say I seek refuge in Rabb al-Falaq. In Surah An-Nas, I say I seek refuge in Rabb al-Nas. But you see the difference here, subhanallah. The difference between Surah An-Nas, Surah Al-Falaq. In Surah Al-Falaq, you say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, and then straight away you say who you're seeking refuge from. In Surah An-Nas, at the beginning you keep talking of who you're seeking refuge in, rather than who you're seeking refuge from. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ. Notice here, in Surah Al-Falaq, you say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مَلِكِ الْفَلَقِ إِلَهِ الْفَلَقِ. No. Here you're saying from the outset, and it's as if it's denoting that, you know what, this enemy who I'm facing in this particular chapter. This enemy is a ferocious enemy, Ya Allah, and I am badly in need of your help. This enemy has tempted, this enemy has tried to work on prophets of yours. This enemy has affected some of the greatest of personalities. Ya Allah, I first recognize you are what? قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Then I recognize you are Malik al-Nas. And then I recognize you are Ilah al-Nas. Firstly, in our lives, we have a Rabb who may look after us, correct or no? As in sometimes our parents will say, Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. Our parents first, they're the nourishers. Then we may have a king of a country who's a nourisher. But then the ultimate nourisher above any parent and above any king is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence the surah begins what? قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ Ilah al-Nas. The highest of them was what? Ilah al-Nas. I have recognized that firstly, I've had Rabbs in my life. As Yusuf said, that the husband of Zulaykha was his Lord. So he's been good to him. Yes? So you find that we may have a Rabb in our parents, a Rabb in our community. I've had a Malik in my life. Say I come from London, and the Malik I have seen, a king in my life. I have seen that Allah is Rabb al-Alameen, He is Maliki Yawm al-Din, and above all else, He is what? He is Ilah. Ilah means what? He is the one who is to be worshipped, but also who I will obey. And I recognize in my worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in my obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is where success lies ultimately. No doubt. If you want to ask anyone in this world, where does your ultimate success lie? They'll tell you, in the worship of Allah, and in what? And in the obedience to Allah. Worship is not enough. There are some who fast and who pray. When it comes to different areas of Islam, you tell them, well, to do that act, that's an act of obedience. They turn around and say, listen, I'm a person who prays, I fast, but on these areas I really am not sure of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person who says what? A person who says قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ. When you say Ilah, you have recognized that, Ya Allah, I worship you and I have to obey you. If a person now turns around today and they pray and they fast, then you tell them, excuse me, why don't you wear hijab? Isn't it about time in your life you wore the hijab? They say to you, listen, to tell the truth, I pray and I fast, but I'm not sure if hijab is for me. That person has worshipped Allah, but not necessarily obeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Islam is to submit. The submission then brings the certainty. Therefore, what is the difference between Ilah and Malik and Rabb? One may argue Rabb and Malik combined allow you to understand Ilah. I recognize Allah as the protector, and Allah is the all-powerful king and the master. All of them combined means that I worship and obey Him, and He is my Ilah. And you know what's something very interesting here? Shaitan wants you to believe you are the Rabb, you are the Malik, and you are the Ilah. This is something phenomenal. You see, when you're saying قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, Allah is telling us قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ. In a way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to us, you know what? Be careful the day you don't think you're the Rabb of the people. And be careful you don't think you're the Malik of the people. And be careful you don't even think you're the Ilah of the people. Someone says, what? What do you mean? I'll never think that I'm the Rabb or I'm the Malik or the Ilah. You may never. Sometimes the way you deal with your staff at work, you actually imagine that you are the Malik above all muluk. Sometimes the way you deal with your children, you believe you're the Rabb and there's no one who can come and talk to you or discuss with you or be open in their opinions to you or make you even think of a different angle. And sometimes I guarantee you there are some people who actually see themselves as gods on this earth. In the world of music today, there are musicians in the hip-hop or R&B industry who pride on themselves saying, we are God, we are Christ, we are on that level. And Shaitan wants us to reach a stage where one day we say we are Rabb, we are Ilah, and we are Muluk. And I guarantee you he's done it. And who did he do it with? Pharaoh. Anyone who studies Pharaoh will find very clearly that when you look at Pharaoh, you'll find within Pharaoh's life, he's uttered the word that he was Rabb, that he is the Malik, and that he is the Ilah. He's the Rabb. He says, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la. Did he not say that I am your Lord, the Most High? The highest level of disrespect and the worst of sins is to compare yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Shaitan managed to do that. And unless you ask refuge from Allah, you could fall into that Pharaoh trap. Pharaoh said, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la. We say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ. He even said, I am the Malik of Masr, correct? He said, I am the Malik of Masr, meaning I am the king, the Lord of Egypt. He even said, I don't know of any Ilah for you to worship except me. Look at Pharaoh. Every single ayah of Surah An-Nas, which we've got to be careful that there's a day we don't become that. that Shaitan doesn't tempt us to do that? Fir'aun was tempted to do each of these. I tell you, Fir'aun, when there used to be a lady by the name of Saniya, and Saniya used to comb the hair of his adopted daughter. And one day when the comb fell on the ground, she said, Bismillah. And the daughter said, sorry? She said, Bismillah. Said, which ilah are you referring to? She said, the Lord of Musa and Harun. And at that moment she turned around, she said, my father's the only ilah. And at that moment she said, no, I believe in the Lord of Musa and Harun. She went and told Fir'aun. Fir'aun came to her and he said, you're saying there's an ilah other than me? Subhanallah. Rabb, ana rabbukum al-a'la. When it came to Malik, I'm the Malik of Misr. When it came to ilah, he says to her, there's an ilah other than me? She said, yes. He said, then I'll burn you and your child alive. Yes? When it came to the burning, the narrations mention, she was scared at that last moment because her child's going to die. As she was about to give up and say, no, I believe that you are the ilah, the child turned around through a miracle and said, Mom, do not worry. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide us with the highest reward for our faith at this moment. You found that what? We say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ. Shaitan wants us, Satan wants us to reach a level of what? Where we actually think one day we are Rabb, where we actually think one day we are Ilahs, where we actually think one day we are Muluk. And I tell you, there have been kings who've said that they were the king of kings. There are being people who've come down and said that they are gods and that their people are to follow them. And you find, therefore, we say, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ مَلِكِ النَّاسِ إِلَهِ النَّاسِ Min, from what? I seek refuge min sharr what? Subhanallah, when you look at this. Min sharr al-waswas al-khannas. Every time I recite this ayah, truly this ayah is a mesmerizing ayah. Min sharr al-waswas al-khannas. Do you know what it's trying to say to you? Firstly, shar, the word sharara indicates the sparks that come out from a flame. These sparks are harmful to you. So you're saying, Ya Allah, I seek refuge from the evil of who? Min sharr al-waswas. The repetitive syllables here, as in the students of Sarf will know here, the sighat al-mubalagha that's occurring over here. You could see this repetition of the syllables. مِن شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الْخَنَّاسِ. Firstly, al-waswas, referring to him, yes, Iblis. Secondly, the repetition of the syllables, highlighting what? It's not just one whispering. No, it doesn't just come and say, listen, go and drink that alcohol. No one's watching you. Or you know what, listen to music in the car. The community doesn't know. Or you know what, for example, commit adultery. No one in the community is going to find out. Go and have a relationship and have intercourse with that married woman. No one will ever know you two were with each other. It's not just like that. It's non-stop. Go and do this, go do that. Go touch this, go do that. Go taste this, go do that. It's non-stop. So when it says, min sharril waswas al-khannas, what's it saying? Al-waswas here is the idea of what? Al-waswas and yuwaswisu. If you look at yuwaswisu, waswas, the repetitive syllables that are occurring over here is a person, an existent like Iblis, will never stop whispering. Iblis is still around until the day they are raised. He will never ever stop whispering. The whispering is always negative. There's never positive whispering. You can have, of course, positive whispering, but there is negative whispering from Iblis only. Iblis is whispering, min sharr al-waswas al-khannas. Al-khannas means what? Al-khannas means they come and they go. They come and they go. They come and they go. فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ. Yes, the stars, I see them, but they come and they go, and they retreat and they come and they go. And sometimes I think they're there, but they're going somewhere else. When I'm looking up at the stars, I look at them and then they're moving and they're coming back. So here when I say min sharr al-waswas al-khannas, I'm looking at this whisperer, and this whisperer comes and goes and moves and comes and goes and doesn't stop with his work. And he has a file, and that file has a brilliant clientele of Fir'aun and Nimrud and Qarun and Qabil, and now he wants you on that list as well as being the next person who is to be affected. Therefore you find the Quran said that I'm seeking refuge, Ya Allah, min sharr al-waswas al-khannas alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudur an-nas. He tries to get right into your soul and wants to affect every thought of yours. That's why you should say A'udhu billah min sharr al-shaytan al-la'in al-rajim. That's why you should send your la'na where you ask Allah to withdraw His mercy from Shaitan, because you've recognized that Shaitan's whisperings can be devastating unless you are powerful enough to say, no, you're not going to affect me. And how does that come? Firstly, faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, the recital of these surahs on a constant basis. Thirdly, recognizing what areas I have to be aware of. Because there's a narration that mentions that Shaitan has a conversation with whom? Shaitan has a conversation with Nabi Nuh alayhi salam. He says to him, listen, Noah, let me tell you something. That there's 3 times when I'm at my most dangerous. Number 1, when you're in a state of anger. If someone was to record our behaviors when we're angry, speaker included, you turn around and say, well, what's wrong with me? I look possessed. Subhanallah, what's shaitan? A jinn. And what can a jinn do? Whisper intensely into you and affect you. You found that when at times of anger, you'll see someone and they'll start saying things you'll never hear them say ever. Shaitan says, when someone's angry, know that I am there. Number 2, when you're about to give charity, know that I am there. Yes, I remember reading a story that one day an imam of a mosque was giving a lecture and he said, listen, be careful. Shaitan is so dangerous that when you're about to give charity, Shaitan will affect you. And he was raising money for a charity because there was a drought in the area. So he said, if you can raise money, it will be excellent, but Shaitan sometimes stops us when we're about to give charity. So one man decided, he said, this imam says Shaitan affects us when we want to raise charity. This is nonsense. I'm going to go home and I'm going to get some charity back for the community. So he went home and he saw his wife and he was taking all the charity back. And she said to him, what's wrong with you? And he's like, well, there's a drought. I want to take some charity back. She's like, come on, what's this? You always give donations to the mosque. That's it, no more. He's like, no, you know what, I need to give. And she's like, no, that's enough. You never spend on us. You only spend on the mosque, no more. So he returned back to the mosque and he saw the imam. He said, oh, imam, you said that Shaitan is the one who blocks and stops us from giving charity. So the imam said, yes. He said, listen, I may not have met Shaitan, but today I met the sister of Shaitan. Yes? In other words, he was saying that, what, my wife today blocked me and I now realize how Shaitan works in different ways. Because Shaitan, what's amazing about Satan is that he's got intermediaries, yes? It doesn't have to himself come and do the work. There are intermediaries of the humans and of the jinn who he uses. And those intermediaries will come to us when we're angry. Those intermediaries will come to us when the second time is when. Those intermediaries will come to us when we're about to give charity. And the third time is those intermediaries, he tells Nabi Nuh, will come to you when? Those intermediaries will come to you at a time of what? Those intermediaries will come to you at a time when you are alone with a woman. That is the third of the 3. Is it wrong to be alone with a woman in Islam? Not at all. Is it wrong to get married? Not at all. But what if a person is alone with someone and they are not in a legal contract with them? And Shaitan says, I will come and I'll whisper, and do not worry, I'll be able to defeat you. And there have been many who were defeated in that situation. That's why, if ever you want to take as a role model in your life, Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, when alone with Zulaykha, no doubt, alone. And the danger is that Shaitan says, I'm the third of the 3, yes? And I'm going to make sure that what am I? I am the one who you recognize as al-waswas al-khannas. I am the one you waswasu bi Surah An-Nas. And you found that you had to seek refuge. And Nabi Yusuf had to seek refuge, yes? He recognized that this was a dangerous moment for him. The whispering of Shaitan had affected Zulaykha. Zulaykha, no doubt, wanted to be with Yusuf. And the Quran makes it clear exactly what the situation was. Because the Quran says that she wanted him. And he would have wanted her were it not for the mercy of his Lord. Yeah? The very meaning of infallibility, that when you recognize that here is the temptation in front of you, there is a desire in front of you, which you have the free will to act, but you know the consequences of your act, and have the utmost respect for the Lord and the blessings that He's surrounded you with in your life. Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam could have easily acted upon this, but you found that he recognized that pleasing his Lord and the pleasure of his Lord was more worthy to him and brought him more pleasure than giving in to the whispers of Shaitan and the movements of Zulaykha. And that's why I remember Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, in the years that he spent in the prisons of Harun al-Rashid, you found that Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salam, while in prison, he'd be in a state of prostration. Harun al-Rashid on one occasion told this lady, one of the most beautiful of the ladies of Arabia, he said to her, enter the prison of Musa ibn Ja'far and go and tempt him with whatever you can. When she entered, she saw Imam, 7th Imam, in his prostration. So she said to him, whatever you want, I am here for you. And he wouldn't rise from his prostration. Again, she turned around and she said, what? Again, she turned around and she said, please let me fulfill your desires. And there was no movement from his prostration. And then on the third time, you found what? On the third time, that she said, but I'm going to be punished if I do not fulfill your desires. Oh man, you're in your prostration, but I beg of you, look at me. At that moment, she says, he removed his head from his prostration and he told her, look towards the ceiling. When she looked up towards the ceiling, she said, I saw gardens flowing, rivers in front of me. And he said to me, why would I want the temporary pleasure of what you offer me, alone here with me, and the whispers of Shaitan affecting you, when the Lord promises all that is in front of me? In other words, you found that Shaitan would try and affect the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and yet they would remain in the thought of what? Shaitan's pleasure is temporary, whereas Allah's pleasure and the obedience of Allah is greater than anything that Satan can tempt me with. And that's why even I remember reading about Ibn Sirin, the famous interpreter of dreams, who people until today when they have a dream, they go to his book on the interpretation of dreams. They ask him, how did you get the gift? You see, what comes with being an obedient servant of Allah, when Shaitan tempts you with everything that's around you. Yes, your friends are saying, let's go clubbing on a Friday, and you say, no, I want the pleasure of Allah. Your friends are saying to you, let's, for example, take some drugs, let's take some alcohol, and saying, I want the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your friends are telling you, let's go and commit adultery. You're saying, I want the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that Allah provides you with light of knowledge, the light of the intellect, opens up your heart, your sadr, which Shaitan wants to enter with his waswasa. That sadr becomes the purest chest which Allah expands to take in everything. Ibn Sirin says that, you want to know how I got the gift of interpreting dreams? This lady who I used to make clothes for, she said, bring the clothes home. When I came home, she opened the door. I entered, put the clothes, then she took off all of her clothing. And she said to me, whatever you want, I'm here for you. He said to her, I have to go towards the bathroom. He entered the bathroom, locked the door of the bathroom. He wondered, the lady is in front of me, and here I am in the bathroom. She's offering me all this temptation. Shaitan's whispering, saying, take it, go ahead. No one in the community will ever find out. But the pleasure of Allah is greater. He actually smothered himself with some of what surrounded him in the bathroom in the WC at the time. So he had a bad smell. When he came out, she came towards him. She smelled the smell. She did not want him. Because of that extent, and we don't have to go to that extent, but that extent he went to make sure that she doesn't even come near him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the gift of being able to interpret the dream. In other words, when someone says to you, be careful of the whispers of Shaitan or Satan, don't just look at it as a myth story that came in biblical or Quranic literature. Rather, we know very well the voice in our head is sometimes more potent than the voice outside. And we know that if we allow that to enter our chest, that will without a doubt eventually surround our heart. And we are the ones who know al-heart, qalb, that which rotates. It could rotate towards Allah, or it could rotate towards Shaitan. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qulubna ala dinik. Therefore you found that Shaitan's clientele is a phenomenal clientele. And that unless a person is wary, then min al-jinnati wan-nas, they may come to you. Notice how it says min al-jinnati wan-nas. One interpreter said something very interesting. He said it says min al-jinnati wan-nas. Why? Because even if a nas whisper for you to do haram, the origin of it was the whispering of a jinn by the name of Shaitan. So jinn came ahead of ins. Why? Min al-jinnati wan-nas. Why? Because of the idea that, you know what, Shaitan has soldiers amongst the jinn, but be careful. There are some soldiers also from the ins. Min al-jinnati wan-nas, from the nas. Why? Nas, number one, man is forgetful. He forgets Allah his Rabb. He forgets Allah his Ilah. He forgets Allah his Malik. So he is willing to listen to the creation of Allah and not want the pleasure of Allah. And so you find some will whisper to you, come with us, let's do this haram. Who will know? Your parents won't know. Your community won't know. Forget my parents and my community. There's a day I will be raised from my grave, having to answer for all of my all the questions that are posed to me. Allahumma inni as'aluka al-amana yawma la yanfa' malun wa la banun. And not only the wealth won't tell me, not only my children, my parents will not tell me. I have to answer for my own acts. When someone comes to you today and says, listen, come and perform this act, ask them, is it bringing pleasure to Allah or pleasure to the enemy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And when you're able to ask yourself that question, you'll be able to ward off min al-jinnati wan-nas. You'll be able to ward off the whisperers of the jinn and the whisperers from the human beings. And I tell you, if ever you want to see where Shaitan won off the hearts of a group of people, you find when you read the Maqatil of Karbala, the way Umar bin Sa'ad's soldiers, completely overtaken by Shaitan. The waswas of telling them to kill Abu Abdullah. He wasn't the one who made them, but he certainly invited them. And the way they barbarically killed Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, the grandson of Rasulullah, butchering him, cutting open his chest, making their horses trample on his body. But not just that, killing his 6-month-old baby, and then whipping and torturing his sisters. That is what could be the result of a group of people who let Shaitan's whisperings overtake them. Whereas a group of people who remain loyal to the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and only take as Allah as their supporter, ni'mal mawla wa ni'mal nasir, are the likes of Zainab and Zayn al-Abidin after Karbala, who remained firm with their strength to ensure that the Hizb of Allah was victorious over the Hizb of Shaitan. As Sayyidah Zainab says, isn't it ironic that the party of Allah is taken, killed, tortured by the party of Shaitan? But she says to Yazid, your ideas are unstable and your government is transitory. Soon you'll meet the messenger of Allah. Soon you'll meet Allah and you'll hear the cry, Ala la'natullah ala al-qawm al-zalimeen. And she says to him, you'll never obliterate our love and our memory from the hearts of the people. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.